Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the AIM Growth Partners podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Grant Mossman, the co-founder of 4D, who is specialists in managed IT and cybersecurity solutions, specifically for small and medium businesses across the Channel Islands. Grant, welcome to the show.
Hi, David. Good to be here.
Let's start this episode, if it's okay, by taking a bit of a step backwards and providing the listeners with a bit of a backstory to yourself, Grant. Who were you prior to setting up for 4D?
Before 4D, I was, uh, I guess, a consultant for a large telco in the Channel Islands. Piece I was there for was kind of building out their cyber practice. The the unique thing for the Channel Islands, at least, is it's a closed market, and the reason I say a closed market is they're very skeptical about just getting outsiders in and purchasing because they don't understand that market. And so when I moved to Jersey, that was quite a difficult thing to get my head around because coming from the UK and South Africa, it's we just get anyone in, speak to the big vendors, can come in. So yeah, there was a steep learning curve for myself on that side.
So I guess leading on then, so what inspired you and your co-founder to set up 4Ds?
I think, we kind of saw a gap where no one was focusing on the small guys. Everyone's looking for the big ticket items, and they are great. They generate a lot of revenue and can, for a small business, if you get an enterprise client, you can pretty much semi-retire, the revenue you make from that. But the thing we were noticing was nobody's paying attention to the small guys. And the small guys are the ones that are getting hit the hardest with cyber. The big guys, they've got a budget, they've got insurance, they've got everything covered. So if they do get hit, they can kind of carry on. The thing that we were trying to do, and I think we've been successful doing, is being able to take enterprise grade solutions and map them down that they would fit onto a small guy, the one man shop on the corner, but at an affordable price for him. And then if he grows and starts becoming a bit bigger, that same solution will scale with him, and that's kind of where we started with 4D is being able to bring the top tier solutions at an affordable budget to the small guys.
Gotcha. And I'm interested in understanding, I mean, cybersecurity seems to be in the news on a kind of a daily or at least a weekly basis. We see all these high profile attacks, whether it's M&S, Co-op, JLR recently. What is it that's sort of trickling through or motivating these smaller companies to take cybersecurity seriously?
Well, that's been a struggle because, we always see the big guys because there's big numbers involved and it affects a large, portion of the population. The small guys, they're getting attacked just as much, and we don't see um, anything about them because it either closes them down, or it affects their business that they struggle and just scrape by until they rebuild the confidence from their clients. But that doesn't come across in the media. Lately, and probably the last year and a half, maybe 2 years, certain government legislations are coming in and requiring people to report and highlight these things. That's been the key thing that I've noticed where the small guys are saying, okay, well, actually, I don't want to get hit with big fines. I don't want to have the government coming after me and, other regulations and stuff. So noticing, we started noticing that they're starting to look and get things in place. It's difficult for the small guys because they don't know where to go and they can't do an ISO 27001. It's just too expensive and too timely for them to implement something like that. The Cyber Essentials route from IASME, that's been a very key thing for us and helping guys at least get the basic framework in place. We start with a basic assessment, put them on a journey to get the plus assessment, and through that whole 12-month cycle that we do, we review and we update everything. We make sure that by the time they get to the end of the 12 months, they can upgrade to the Cyber Essentials Plus. Um, that that does two things. It gives the client the quick confidence to say, look, we've got Cyber Essentials. We looking at security, and then through the year they get the confidence with us, that we've got their best interest at heart and show them how to get Cyber Essentials Plus, and then maintain that journey through their business career.
I think it's such an interesting thing you kind of touched on there that we see all these high profile attacks. And I guess there's an element of people thinking, well, that's not going to happen to me. I'm a one man band or I'm a small kind of outfit. But to your point there, the difference is the ramifications for these smaller businesses are huge. Often you don't hear about it because businesses go under. You know, JLR, Co-op, M&S, all of them will recover. Do you know what I mean? The reputational loss, it's probably going to be temporary, but guess what? I'm going to shop at M&S again. Might not buy a Jaguar, but
Yeah.
they're going to be fine. These smaller businesses, I think it can be so dangerous, this mindset of it's not going to happen to me, because if it does,
Yeah,
you're going under.
and it's it's a bit of a double-edged sword because it brings the business down and they close the business, but the stress and the ramifications on the actual business owner is huge. You know, a lot of times it's not just a simple data breach and we steal your data and you can't get it back, so you close your business. It's the threat actors will hound that owner, and start trying to extort money out of them and doing a lot more. And that adds a lot of stress to a business owner because now he's feeling victimized and threatened, as well.
And I presume, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but as you know, larger enterprises are paying more and more attention to cybersecurity, presumably looking at their supply chain and the supply chain risks, it makes it even more important for the smaller businesses to get their affairs in order, so to speak, because they're going to be much more vetted from a security standpoint, right?
Well, yes, it's easier, to take a small business and put them on the right path fairly quickly. Because there's a lot less moving parts that they have. If you think about a medium or a large enterprise, they've already got established third-party supply chains. They've got other vendors working in there. They've got staff. They've got a whole bunch of moving parts. To try and manage that and get that secured, you have to kind of put a process and sift through it. The small business, often they don't have a large supply chain. So, you can quickly take the supply chain, vet those people, and put the basic controls in place and follow that through. And if you do that correctly, it kind of scales with the business as they grow. So every time they come in, they do the same process, vet them, put the controls in place, and they'll just keep staying secure.
I noticed on your website you describe yourself as a new era partner in terms of managed security services. So I'm interested in sort of understanding what that means and talk to me about the evolution when it comes to sort of cybersecurity and managed IT services that 4D have stayed at the kind of the front of.
Yeah. So the name came about because we're trying to take a look at the fourth dimension. So we're not just looking at things in a 3D perspective. We're trying to look at all angles to your business. The new sort of era is it's not just about technology. We're not going to go to a client and just sell them the latest shiny new bells and whistles and they put that in. For us, it's more about the human aspect, is how do we work with you? How do we get you to understand the technology that's coming in? And, if we can put less technology in, then even better. And we'll just change the policies or the processes, So that's been very good for us because we've helped some people just look at the stack they've got, remove a few products and tweak their overall processes. And they've become 80% more secure just by doing that.
So it sounds like fundamentally a very different approach to offering and democratizing cybersecurity for these smaller businesses. You talked about kind of the status quo or the state of the cybersecurity market that, you've got all these big, large enterprise tools out there, CrowdStrike's, the Palos, that are offering 120 features, not tailored towards SMBs. So talk me through then, when you're working with these kind of smaller and medium businesses, how do the engagements typically work?
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. And the tools are when you're speaking to a small customer, they don't understand the tools. They don't care about how many features it's got. They don't care about any of that. All they need, their main thing is budget. I don't have the budget for this, but I know I've got a need to put something in. And that's where we come in and say, well, don't buy the cheapest thing out there. Before we even look at what we're going to buy, let's talk about your business. What is the intellectual part of your business? What are you trying to protect? And we work out from that. So for example, if we've got a small retail firm, they'll have some key products that they're selling. So they want to collect that data, store that data and protect it. So make sure we've got the permissions set up right, and we do a whole data review and a heat map for them. And then we'll start protecting and layering the security out around that. Um, they don't know pricing. They don't even understand the risk a lot of the times, and it's about trying to equate the risk into a language that they know they need to protect and they know and they understand. That's the hardest part.
So as cliche as it sounds, it's tying security to business outcomes then.
Yeah. Yeah. Dumbing it down, getting rid of all the technical jargons and the acronyms.
What are you seeing as kind of the major trends, the things that are keeping these CEOs, founders, or business leaders up at night, and the things you're kind of brought in to help with?
And it varies. So a lot of the time they are worried about the regulations that they need to follow, um, and making sure that they meet every requirement on there. Some of them don't quite understand those regulations. They understand the regulation part on a business level, but not on the technical part. So it's helping them put basic controls and stuff in place for that. The threats that they are concerned about, the Marks and Spencers, the co-op, that they do kind of question or think about, if that's me, what does it look like? And they can't afford a 300 million pound ransom or lawsuit against them, so they worried about that sort of impact and the brand reputation that they would have on that.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so talking then about AI, and as businesses are kind of rushing and adopting AI
Yeah.
and kind of plugging it in where they can in the business,
Yeah, I mean, AI is the hot topic of the moment, isn't it? It's it's a great enabler. I think it's allowed startups and small businesses to scale quicker, do a lot more fancy things than they've been able to do before. The downside, I think, has been, none of the small guys actually understand the risk or what that means. They're just using AI, putting it in, getting the benefits out of it, and they're seeing exactly what they want. We've had to come in and just explain to them, if you're putting your customer data into ChatGPT, for example, that's a public kind of thing, and it's possible that other people can use some very clever prompts to see that data, and get those details, which they didn't understand. So it's trying to make sure they understand that sort of risk, and using AI in the correct way securely. The last 6 months, we've put a AI readiness package together, which does exactly that. And we're going to businesses and saying, like, let's make sure your environment is primed and ready for AI. And the way we do that is we look at the data and we map the data out, and make sure that the permissions are correct, and we put guardrails in place where there need to be guardrails, so all of that needs to be done before we then start saying, let's enable AI. Let's put AI in and start training your users how to use AI. If you're not doing that, you run the risk of potentially some very fatal breaches or vulnerabilities that will pop up.
but also I think it's interesting to what you were talking about with the kind of the regulations coming in. From my understanding from guests I've previously had on the podcast, if you're not, compliant and you're plugging AI in here, there, and everywhere and can't explain what it's doing, what it's accessing, it's going to impair your ability to do trade with certain portions of, well, of Europe, for example, with the resiliency bill that's come in.
Yeah, I mean, those are great that they're coming in. Again, smaller guys don't quite understand that. We've last year I spent a large portion trying to get people to follow DORA, and get DORA regulations done. And a lot of them just turned around and said, it doesn't affect us. We don't work with European countries, so we're not sending money to Europe. We're not trading with companies in Europe. So they weren't really interested in that. Um, the AI resilience bill, that I haven't seen anyone start actively wanting to get to the crux of that, but we will start to see some of that coming through, I think. Again, that's, plays exactly to what we're saying is, don't blindly roll out AI. Let's build the base for the best possible solution where AI can come in. It's that old added analogy or line that I think garbage in, garbage out. And it's if your data is a mess and you don't know what your data is or how your environment or your users use your data, putting AI in is just adding to the mess. AI is going to take all that data up. People are going to be able to take things they shouldn't see in there. It's not going to really give you a great AI output. Whereas if you build a good structure and a good architecture for the AI to come in and analyze that data properly, and you're not going to have your janitors being able to log on a computer and say, show me the exact bonuses, and it just pops up, says, oh, yeah, these execs are earning millions of dollars, and this is the next redundancy list and stuff like that. So that's the things that we trying to highlight and make sure that people are aware that AI can do this.
Mm,
The There are even users setting up little AI bots and little agents. You're going to have people within businesses that have little bots doing various different tasks, and no one's going to have control of that.
mm.
And they're just going to run through the business doing stuff that nobody really knows what it's doing, but it's taking your data and it's putting it somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
So it sounds like the difficult balance to the kind of whole next gen or new era of managed security. It's about how can you be a business enabler, providing those security solutions, but not being that sort of the bad guy. It's like you can't use AI, you can't advance your business. Yes, they're telling you it's revolutionary, you'll be left behind if you don't adopt it. You're saying, okay, through our readiness assessment or our readiness kind of pack, this is how we can at least ensure that you're ready to start adopting. We can then build on the controls and everything around it.
exactly that. Let's build the foundations for your castle. We want the business to succeed. We want you to use AI. We want you to get all that benefits, but we don't want to build on, clay foundations, because you can put all of that stuff in, and if your base is not right, it's just going to come crumbles down. Whether it's 6 months, a year, or 10 years later, it's going to get hit. You're going to get hit. So if we build a good base and we get the data that you have all secured and managed, and put proper processes in on how you would scale and that would continue staying secured. Putting AI in, putting AI agents, letting your users build agents, it's gonna enhance the effectiveness of the AI, but it's going to enhance the usability from the user standpoint. People will be more enticed to use it because they'll be able to do things that they can speed their job up. It's done right and it's getting the right data. It's not finding stuff that they don't need.
Absolutely. And turning attention then onto the kind of the operational side of the business, then you mentioned you and your founder identified there's opportunity in the Channel Islands and specifically towards kind of the SMB, the small medium businesses. How did you actually go about winning those clients? Because it's one thing to have the idea and notice a gap in the market. It's an entirely different thing to build a business off the back of it. So talk me through how you managed to secure those early customers.
I'm not going to lie, it's not easy. I don't think I'm the only one, but client acquisition is very hard and very difficult. There is a lot of competition out there as well. You know, we were lucky enough to secure one or two clients that we could build a good reputation with, and from those, just word of mouth has been a large portion of where we've got to now. The operational side, we are now starting to use AI ourselves, and put some of that automated processes in place where we can start tracking and building out a client list. When we started, it was just the two of us, and it was difficult to try and do everything. Wearing hats, you're doing the finances, you're doing the marketing, you're trying to consult and do all of that stuff as well. But now we've got a team behind us, and we're able to get the proper processes that we should have had in the beginning in place. And I think the messaging that we got out there, and the way we're trying to grow the business is resonating. We've got the solutions that everybody is looking for. So yeah, we'll hopefully double our client list in the near future.
You've spoken before about, this lean kind of agile business that you've got at the moment, and that affords many benefits to you, which include being able to pass those kind of cost savings on to your clients. but at the same time, you want to have the team around you to implement the system. So talk me through how you've kind of balanced that, as I know you've previously had kind of SDR teams or people that have now
Yeah.
gone. How do you decide what's mission critical to move the business forward versus where you can maybe save on headcount?
Yeah, it's to try. Well, I'd say we've tried and tested a number of things, and our from the start we wanted to be agile. We didn't want to become, and we still don't want to become this big, conglomerate. We don't want to be a Palo Alto. We don't want to be a Cisco or anything like that. For us, it's remaining agile, and by staying agile, it allows us to move quickly through the market, and especially the way it's changing at the moment. But what's been very key for us is some very key partnerships. Is being able to partner with the right people where we can leverage their skills and share our knowledge and our resources with them and vice versa. So that's really been a big help with us. And we're always looking for, any other partners where we can do the same thing.
And you mentioned one of the other benefits of staying agile is that you are able to kind of act and react to market trends. So looking ahead then, what are the kind of the main trends that you're noticing in the market or you predict coming in the future that you want to best sort of position yourself for?
Yeah. Without giving too many secrets away, I think, AI is key front and center. Anyone that's not doing anything with AI is going to start to fall behind. And I think what's key for us is not necessarily getting tools that use AI, um, but it's more around how do we secure AI and how do we protect businesses using AI in the best way. The tools and the technology, we've got a few vendors that we're noticing starting to look at how do they protect threats from AI. So we're keeping our eyes open for that because I think that's the one thing we haven't really seen come to light yet is how the threat actors are using AI, mass sort of attacks or anything like that. So um, I think that's the scary piece because there is a lot of things we know AI can do, um, and we'll soon start seeing, instead of the threat actors doing phishing examples, that there'll be bots that are just doing phishing, and then the bots will be attacking individuals and going after identities. So, the scale of that is quite scary, to be honest, because, for one person to do something like that, it can take a bit of time and they're limited to how much they can do. But now if you've got, 10 or 20 bots doing the same thing, it's a little bit more scarier.
It's almost like a fighting fire with fire. The only way to protect against AI is to use AI.
Yeah, yeah, we're almost fighting a losing battle because, to protect yourself from threat actors, you need to defend yourself 100% of the time. Whereas a threat actor, he just needs one attack at 1% to get in, so we're always going to be, the worst off, so to speak. The the phishing emails that we've seen are becoming very, very scary in the fact that they are realistic and a lot harder to spot. The banking ones are almost identical to what a banking email would come through as. The Amazon and the UPS ones, you can't tell the difference. The way we're trying to stop that is just the user education and awareness. When I started out in cybersecurity, we used to use the scaremongering tactic to stop people from clicking stuff. These days, that's the wrong approach, I think, because when you start scaring users, they find other ways to do stuff, and they'll click on an email and then not tell you about it. So we try and educate them and let them say, like, if you're unsure of something, just send it to us. We've got a phishing email box. You can send it there. We'll analyze it. If it's legitimate, we'll tell you, no, you're good. Go ahead. And if it's a threat or a concern, we'll block it across your environment so that you don't have to worry about it. It it can happen to absolutely anyone. I mean, if it's happening to the big enterprises where, they've got their own in-house teams, they've got, different departments handling different things, and they can still get in. So if you think about a small business, where there's maybe 10 or 15 people there, in a way, they a little bit more protected, I would think, because Usually they're in one office, so if they get an email, they can say, did you send this, or is this something I should click on? So everyone becomes aware a lot quicker. Um, but there's times where, it's those people that are traveling, going to the countries, they're in a rush, you're on their phone, oh, someone sent me an email, just open this document, or, you know, accept the MFA, and I'm trying to work on my phone. I keep getting these requests come through. They're annoying. Just accept it, just to get rid of it. And that's all they need.
Coming back onto something you said previously, and I think it's really interesting and it kind of pertains to marketing as well, is that scaremongering tactic. It no longer works in cybersecurity, whether it's security teams, IT teams trying to enforce it to employees and scare them into better cyber hygiene. I think from a marketing standpoint, it's the same. And I know a lot of cyber vendors, their kind of marketing teams are scrambling and they're kind of grappling with, all how do people want to be approached now? Because everyone knows cybersecurity is an issue, but like how are we meant to approach people? Because these days of saying to people, you could be the next M&S, you could be the next co-op or whoever it is, that doesn't resonate with the buyer anymore. And I think it's people know security is a risk, but they need to be educated and taken through the kind of buyer journey in much more, I don't know, friendly ways than traditional kind of archaic methods.
Yeah, I mean, this is an interesting one because, we're trying different things with our marketing message. And when you look at everybody else's marketing message, it's, AI, our tools to AI this and it's AI that. And, don't be the next M&S, don't be the next co-op, you know, uh, you know, just, it's very generic, and we've seen it time and time again. It, it's very difficult to say, how do we do that, and how do you how do you get the right message across to your clients? They're looking for someone who can solve their problems, so you need to understand what their problems are. Because having been a CISO in the past, you can do the research on the tools yourself. And usually they do. But then it's how do you get their attention to say, let's partner together, let's work on that. And I think a lot of vendors make that mistake, is they keep taking the sales approach instead of saying, let me hear your pain points. Let's sit down, let's partner together. And if we've got something that works for you, great. If we don't, then let's stay in contact.
That consultative approach really resonates with me, but it's almost that kind of open hand approach of welcoming people in. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be right for you, but I welcome you in. Like, let's have a talk and let's see what your pain points are and see if we can map something onto that.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, it's worked the other way around. I've been able to go to those clients and say, look, we're doing our own thing. This is what we're putting out there. Can I ask you just to review it and give me your honest thoughts? And being able to get that same um, constructive criticism back from them has really helped us, understand the market a little bit better as well.
A saying, I don't know where I heard it, but it's the whole idea that everyone wants to buy, but no one wants to be sold to. It's such a interesting kind of contradiction. How you can sell to people without selling to them is it's fascinating, and it's such an art form in itself, I think.
Yeah, I've watched many podcasts and read books on how to be a salesman without being a salesman. How to sell anything under the sun without selling it. There's loads of different scenarios and things that people try and do, but I think it always comes back to just being open and honest, and build that trusted partnership or relationship with somebody.
And that was a fantastic takeaway in and of itself. Given your experience of building 4D into what it is now and your predictions for the future, what would be your kind of greatest lessons and takeaways for the listeners here, whether in cybersecurity specifically or growing businesses like themselves?
I think it's fail fast is one thing that I've always listened to and always tried to follow, but at the same time is don't give up. So I know it's kind of contradicting, but if you have something that you think works and you're certain it's going to work, keep trying. Fail fast on the things that don't, but redo it and go back to it. On the cybersecurity side of things, it's just the basics, protect your data. Everybody's after your data. Um, and it doesn't, we all generating data in one way, shape, or form. It's just make sure you know what your data is and follow the basic principle on that is permission your data correctly. We should be glorifying failure in a way, because you know, if you failed, it means you've tried, and if you've succeeded, then you've guaranteed that you have failed along the way. So either of those should be a badge of honor that we should be able to wear.
As cliche as it sounds, like everyone that's kind of succeeded in life said they've learned so much more from their failures than from their successes. And there's a
Yeah,
lesson in itself from that, isn't there?
yeah, absolutely.
Well, Grant, it's been an absolute pleasure hosting you on the podcast. I've learned so much about you, so much about the business, and I really appreciate kind of the insights I've gleaned from having you on. And yeah, I want to thank you on behalf of me and the listeners.
Thank you, David. It's been great.